we come to the creme de la creme of the news. I'm sure you guys heard about the arrest. Eh? I'm sure you guys heard about the arrest. Chat, it happened. Don Lemon got arrested at 1 a.m. local time this morning. He has been arrested and he has been charged, along with the co-conspirators. Well, they probably released him on bail, undoubtedly, but he has been arrested. Yes, he has. And what I'm going to do, chat, I'm going to pull up the indictment for Don Lemon right now on stream. We are going to look at the indictment for Don Lemon as well as all of his co-conspirators. I'm pulling it up on screen. It's been unsealed and I'm pulling it up. And we're going to go through it. I will try not to make it boring. Yes, it is it is a federal indictment. This is a federal indictment. It is a grand jury indictment. Here we go. It's 14 pages long, so buckle up. I will try to go through it and not make it boring. First and foremost, the plaintiffs. Nikema Valdez Levy Armstrong. Chantil Louise Allen. William Scott Kelly, a.k.a. DeWoke Farmer. Don Ronaldo Lennon. That's Don Lemon. Oh, a name that's been redacted. Jamel Lydell Lundy. Trey Hearn, Jean Cruz, Georgia Elise Fort, and redacted. Bearing in mind, this first name here, this is that lawyer, that the black lady who claims to be a lawyer and an activist, who was basically the ringleader. This was the ringleader of this group that basically did the raid of the terrorist attack on the church. So this is her. So what we're about to read is basically covering all of that. Yes, correct. Yes, she's also a reverend. So she's a lawyer, she's an activist, and she claims to be a reverend of a church. Very Christian-like of her to raid a church and terrorize parishioners. Very Christian-like of her. But this is all done, and so we're going to go through the indictment. This is the indictment for all of them. Yes, she was arrested. In fact, okay, before we jump into it, yeah, she made a statement whining and crying that she basically was secured using standard prisoner restraints. Because, of course, a fucking reeing SJR like her had to have a press conference the moment she was released on bond or bail, pending the hearing. And she's like, they put me in a waist chain and handcuffs. I felt like a slave. I'm not kidding. She literally said that. She literally said because she was secured with a waist chain and handcuffs. She said, I felt closer to my slave, like I felt closer to being a slave than I ever have in my entire life because she was adorned with standard prisoner restraints. You know, like 99% of the prison population of America, which includes black people, which includes white people, which includes Hispanic people, which includes Asian people, which includes Indian people, and so, like, literally every fucking race under the sun. And she's bitching and crying and claiming she felt like she was a slave because she had standard prisoner restraints on when she was, wait for it, a prisoner in a legal prison. But of course, she had to play the victim card, which no one fucking buys. Yeah, not only did she pull out the race card, believe her, not only did she pull out the race card, she literally pulled out the black/white privilege card. She literally did, I'm too privileged to be treated like this when there are literally millions of prisoners in the United States that are restrained using the same restraints every hour of every day. But she feels that she is so special that because she was restrained in the same restraints that millions of other prisoners have been restrained in for God knows how many decades. To her, I was a slave because because I was secured with those restraints. It's so fucking stupid. She is a fucking performative cunt. Fuck her. Now, moving on. Let's look at the indictment. So, introductory allegations at all times relevant to this indictment. The city's church, quote, the church, is a Christian house of worship located in St. Paul, Minnesota. On the morning of Sunday, January 18th, 2026, at approximately 10:30 a.m., the church's pastor was leading the Congress in a liturgical, okay, service. In that service, the church's pastor and congregation were then exercising and seeking to exercise the First Amendment right of religious freedom at a place of religious worship, a right that is also protected by a federal statute codified at Title 18, United States Code Section 248. After the service commenced, a group of approximately 20 to 40 agitators, including all of the defendants named in this indictment, entered the church in a coordinated takeover-style attack and engaged in acts of oppression, intimidation, threats, interference, and physical obstruction alleged herein. As a result of the defendant's conduct, the pastor and congregation were forced to terminate the church's worship service. Congregants fled the church building out of fear for their safety. Other congregants took steps to implement an emergency plan, and young children were left to wonder, as one child put it, if their parents were going to die. This part right here, instant prison time. This is precisely what I was so fucking enraged about when this first came out. When all this first came out. This right here. They terrified young children. Infants and toddlers. They terrified them and thought that their parents made them think their parents were going to die. Every fucking one of them needs to get put in the box and tossed away for 20 years. 20 fucking years. When you terrify children like this for the sake of your message and your agenda, 20 fucking years. You're done. You're gone. Lock them the fuck up. Lock them up. Count 1. Conspiracy against right of religious freedom at a place of worship. So this is count 1 of the indictment. The allegations set forth in paragraphs 1 through 4 of this indictment are relegated and incorporated herein by reference. Object of the conspiracy. Beginning on an unknown date and continuing to on or about January 18th, 2026, in the State District of Minnesota, defendants Nikema, Shuntalo, William, Don Lemon, Jamel Traherne, and Georgia, plus the 2 redacted, conspired and agreed with one another and with other persons known and unknown to the grand jury to injure, oppress, threaten, and intimidate multiple persons, including the clergy, staff, and congregants of the city's church, in the free exercise and enjoyment of the rights and privileges secured to them by the laws of the United States, and because of such persons having exercised such right, namely, exercise of the First Amendment right of freedom, religious freedom at a place of religious worship, as secured by Title 18, United States Code Section 248C, all in violation of Title 18, United States Code Section 241, conspiracy against rights. So, basically, this charge is in reference to a conspiracy to, it's in regard to all the defendants conspiring to forcibly remove everyone in the church's First Amendment right to religious freedom at a place of worship. That is what this charge is all about. Because of the terroristic activities of these people, they forcibly removed every person in that church's right of religious freedom covered by the First Amendment. That's what this charge is. Manner and means. In order to achieve the object of the conspiracy, defendants Armstrong and Allen, together with other persons unknown to the grand jury, organized the operation targeting the church, which they dubbed Operation Pull-Up, and promoted it on the internet via Instagram accounts. All defendants met at a shopping center for a pre-op briefing, during which Armstrong and Allen, just as a reminder, Armstrong and Allen is Nakima and Chumtil. Okay, the top two names here. That's Armstrong and Allen. All defensemen shopping center, okay, I already said that, advised other co-conspirators, including defendants Kelly, Lemon, Redacted, Lundy, Cruz, Fort, and Redacted, about the target of their operation, i.e. City's church. Remember, Don Lemon said, I had no idea where they were going. Remember, he tried to put out that backpedaling and eating shit video saying, I had no idea where they were going. I didn't know. Yeah, these two actually told him exactly what the target of the operation was and provided instruction on how the operation would be conducted once they arrived at the church. So
that was a fucking lie.
So yeah, Don Lemon lied, saying, I had no idea what was going to happen. Nope, he got briefed along with all the other terrorists. All the other terrorists, along with Don Lemon, got fully briefed on where they were going and what they were doing. Oops. Once at the church, all the defendants entered the church to conduct a takeover-style attack and engaged in various acts in furtherance of the conspiracy. Overt acts. So these will be acts of overt removing of the First Amendment. Hi, Black Lantern Ace. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed the legal lesson today. Well, not lesson, but we're going over this. So this would be overt acts. So basically just, these would be acts that were in violation of the First Amendment rights of the parishioners and the pastor, that were egregious or very easily recognizable to anybody. Okay, that's where the overt acts is coming into play. In furtherance of the conspiracy and to accomplish the object thereof, defendants Armstrong, Allen, Kelly, Lemon, Redacted, Lundy, Cruz, Fort, and Redacted, together with other persons known and unknown to the grand jury, committed various overt acts, including, but not limited to, the following. Overt Act number 1. On or about January 17, 2026, defendant Armstrong posted a flyer on 2 Instagram accounts controlled by her at Nekimal and at Racial Justice MN, advertising an anti-ICE action dubbed Operation Pull-Up, telling fellow agitators where to meet to prepare for the operation and exhorting them to be, quote, ready to mobilize, unquote. ICE referring to Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Overt Act 2. On or about January 17, 2026, defendant Allen posted a similar flyer on her personal Instagram account at Schulte Hill. Overt Act number 3. On the morning of January 18, 2026, all of the named defendants gathered with approximately 20 to 30 other co-conspirators for a pre-operation briefing led by defendants Armstrong and Allen at the parking lot of Cub Foods at 1440 University Avenue, West, St. Paul, Minnesota, 55104. Overt Act number 6. At the pre-operation briefing, defendants Armstrong and Allen advised other co-conspirators, including defendants Kelly, Lemon, Redacted, Lundy, Cruz, Fort, and Redacted, about the target of their operation, i.e. City's church, and provided instruction on how the operation would be conducted once they arrived at the church. Once again, repeating that Don Lemon is a fucking liar, and he was fully briefed on where they were going and what they were doing, completely contradicting the lie he said in his quote-unquote broadcast. It's possible that the redacted are minors. Entirely possible, yes. Certainly. I don't know why they're redacted. They're redacted. For the purposes of what we're doing here, inconsequential. Overt Act number 5. On the morning of January 18th, 2026, defendant Lemon, here we go, began live streaming on his internet-based show, The Don Lemon Show, where he explained to his audience that he was in Minnesota with an organization that was gearing up for a, quote, resistance, unquote, operation against the federal government's immigration policies, and he took steps to maintain operational secrecy by reminding certain co-conspirators not to disclose the target of the operation and stepped away momentarily so his mic would not accidentally divulge certain portions of the planning session. Oops.
Gotcha, bitch!
Yes. So there is one part of Don Lemon's act in doing all of this. Overt Act number 6. During a discussion with defendant Armstrong at the pre-op briefing, defendant Lemon thanked defendant Armstrong for what she was doing and assured her that he was, quote, not saying what's going on, unquote, i.e. he was not disclosing the target of the operation. Defendant Armstrong explained that, quote, Operation Pull-Up, unquote, was a, quote, clandestine, unquote, operation, in which she and other agitators would, quote, show up somewhere that is a key location where the targets don't expect us, and we disrupt business as usual. That's what we're about to go do right now, unquote. And defendant Lemon said he would see her there. Bearing in mind, that last part, he would see her there, indicates he knew where they were going. Contrary to what he said of, I had no idea, contrary to his backpedaling after the event question saying, I had no idea where they were going, this contradicts everything that he said, that he had no prior knowledge of it when he said, I'll see you there, meaning he did know exactly where they were going and would be meeting up with them. Overt Act number 7. Before heading to the church to join his co-conspirators, defendant Lemon advised his live stream audience that, quote, we're going to head to the operation. Again, we're not going to give away any of the information away, unquote, i.e. operational details that would disclose where he and his co-conspirators were heading. Overt Act number 8. At the pre-op briefing, defendant Allen led other co-conspirators in chants that they would use at the church, including, quote, this is what community looks like, unquote, and, quote, ice out of Minnesota, unquote. Urged by her co-conspirators that they have a, quote, urged her co-conspirators that they have a, quote, duty to fight for our freedom, unquote, and, quote, a duty to win, unquote. And as the group prepared to head towards the church, directed by her co-conspirators to stay, quote, bumper to bumper, make sure everybody gets through the light, unquote, and confirm that everyone had the address. Overt Act number 9. Hang on, I need a drink. Overt Act number 9. At the pre-op briefing, defendant Armstrong provided instruction and operational guidance to her co-conspirators, including the following. The first wave of agitators should enter the church essentially in an undercover capacity and position themselves around the church sanctuary, but they should not sit together and should not wear anything that is activist identifying. And those who had anything activism identifying should wait and come in with the second wave. This is the level of planning these terrorists had. They plan this out in literal waves. This is something that is coming out. All of these, anti-ICE all these anti-ICE people, they were highly organized with that signal chat. They were highly organized. They had people running this that actually had organizational skills. The grunts, the cannon fodder that these people happily threw out onto the streets had no experience with this. They were like, all the cannon fodder they threw out were the useful idiots. The people at the top actually had, some of them I think actually had military training. Because I've seen some of the stuff about in the Signal chat where they talk, like there's like a massive document for if you wanted to get involved with them that included talking about salute. You military guys know that the acronym salute is used in the military. That is military orders for how to conduct operations. Not orders, but it's like an acronym that the military use when it comes to conducting operations. So without a doubt, the people at the head of this conspiracy, not this specific one, that's why I corrected myself, McGame. I corrected myself, not worse. Yeah, it's basically, salute is basically the acronym that the military uses for doing like observational reports when they're out in the field for observing enemy units and enemy targets and stuff. So without question, with this like whole Signal chat group, at the top they had someone in the military basically organizing this, or at least guiding the organization. Without a doubt, we're going to hear that for either active or former members of the military were involved with this Signal chat anti-ICE group. But anyway, moving on. Overt Act number 10. Continuing on the morning of January 18th, 2026, all of the defendants got in vehicles and traveled with their co-conspirators to the church to engage in planned takeover-style operation. Okay, know this. Overt Act 11. While en route to the church, defendant, redacted, told defendant Lemon that they had to catch up to the others, and defendant Lemon replied, "Let's go catch up." And because he was still live streaming, Lemon instructed redacted and an unidentified male, don't give anything away. I.e., don't divulge information about the operation, and advise his audience, we can't say too much, we don't want to give it up. Again, completely contradicting his later statements of going, I know nothing, I'm just a dumb journalist. Completely discounting. Overt Act number 12. Continuing on the morning of January 18th, 2026, all the defendants, together with other co-conspirators, entered the church sanctuary, with the first wave positioning themselves amongst the congregants, and the second wave, led by defendants Armstrong and Allen, commencing the disruptive takeover operation, in which the first wave of agitators then actively joined. Overt Act number 13. As the pastor was beginning his sermon, now we're going to get into the meat of this. As the pastor was beginning his sermon, defendant Armstrong interrupted the service with loud declarations about the church harboring a, quote, director of ICE, unquote, and indicating that the time for judgment had come. And other co-conspirators immediately joined in by yelling and blowing whistles in a takeover attack on the church, all of which quickly caused the situation in the church to become chaotic, menacing, and traumatizing to church members. And here is where we're getting into the meat of it. Just imagine for a moment that you are in church, okay? That you are attending church as normal. It is a normal church session. You and your fellow parishioners and churchgoers are sitting, the pastor is beginning his address to the congregation, and then literally out of nowhere, people come storming in screaming about, fuck ICE or whatever their chants were. Well, people just start coming out of the woodwork from within the congregation, screaming the same thing, blowing whistles, while there are small children, like 3 to 5 years old, sitting right there. These children must have thought that they were in a nightmare. They must have thought that they were about to die, with these people suddenly exploding into the church like this. They must have been absolutely fucking terrified. Absolutely terrified. That's why I classified this as terrorist attack. I'm honestly very upset that the grand jury did not indict them for terroristic activities, because this was, without question, a planned and organized terrorist attack. The entire purpose of this attack was to inflict terror upon the churchgoers. This was, without question, a domestic terrorist attack. To label it as anything else is an insult to the people that went through this. Okay? So that is why I have called it a terrorist attack. From the very beginning, I called this a terrorist attack. I continue to call it a terrorist attack, and I'm fucking pissed that they didn't actually charge them with terroristic threats or charge them with terrorism, like domestic terrorism. They absolutely should have charged them with domestic terrorism, because here's the crux of it. None of the people in this church were involved with ICE. The person that they were looking for, this, quote, director of ICE, unquote, who is supposedly a pastor at this church, was not present. None of the people in the church that day had anything to do with ICE. Not one of them, not a single thing. And these people charged in there and literally terrorized them. They'd made these children think that they and their parents were going to die. They thought that these terrorists that stormed into the church were going to kill them. 100%, it is a travesty of justice that these people did not get charged with domestic terrorism, because what they did is the very definition of it. And I hope that there's still time for additional charges to be laid against them, and that they do get charged with domestic terrorism. That needs to get pushed. That needs to get, the public needs to actually raise their voices on this one and say that that not charging them with domestic terrorism is unacceptable. That it's unacceptable that they can literally terrorize children and not get charged with terrorism. That's the one thing, is that I really do hope that every single member of the church that was in the building that day sues every single one of them. Sues them for literally everything. This is one of the most airtight class action lawsuits I have ever fucking seen. Every one of the people in that church has an airtight class action lawsuits against every single person involved with this terrorist attack. It's civil rights infringement and emotional distress. Because for the love of God, you can't prove emotional distress of 3-year-olds that are the victim of a terrorist attack? Of course you can. This would be an absolutely fucking tight civil case against every one of these people, and I hope to God every one of those parishioners get together and they file a class action lawsuit against every fucking one of them, and I hope they have to give up every single I hope they are forced to give up every single person that was in that group. They have the names. Make no mistake. They have the names. Like the ringleaders of this, they have the names of every single person that was there. They've got that. And they should legally be forced to give up every single name that was involved. Every single one that was involved should be thrown in the box and then be sued for everything they've got. They should lose everything and give it to the families, because those families are going to be spending a fortune on fucking therapy for their kids who they now gave PTSD to. Bear in mind, these children may very well have PTSD from this terrorist attack, and they may spend God knows how many years in therapy. Just wait for that. We're going to be hearing about that. We are going to be hearing about the parents of these children that were victims of this terrorist attack in the coming months or perhaps even years. We are going to hear that they are suffering from PTSD. I will guarantee. And God knows what else. God knows what other mental health issues that they're going to have because of this terrorist attack. Anyway, continuing on. A vote Act number 14. While inside the church, defendants Armstrong, Kelly, Redacted, Lundy, Cruz, and Redacted and others led and or joined with their co-conspirators in various chants, including ice out, hands up, don't shoot, because of fucking course. Of course, they pulled out the St. Floyd bullshit. Of course they pulled. Bearing in mind, this attack, this terrorist attack, occurred before the Alex Preddy incident. So they included, they basically made chants, including ice out, hands up, don't shoot, and stand up and fight back, while gesturing in an aggressive and hostile manner, which congregants and the pastor perceived as threats of violence and potential prelude to a mass shooting. There's the key. That last part right there. This last part right there, they came in hot. They came in very hot and basically placed these people in fear of receiving a mass shooting. That's what happened. Or maybe it was Michael Brown. But they basically placed them in fear that they were about to be victims of a mass shooting. Like, that's key right there. Is what was the, what was the mindset of the victims? Being reasonable reasonable peoples, did they fear for their life and safety? And they did. They thought that they were about to become a victim of a mass shooting. Overt Act number 15. While inside the church, defendants Armstrong, Allen, Kelly, Lemon, redacted, Bundy, Cruz, Fort, and redacted, oppressed, threatened, and intimidated the church's congregants and pastors by physically occupying most of the main aisle and rows of chairs near the front of the church, engaging in menacing and threatening behavior, for some chanting and yelling loudly at the pastor and congregants, and or physically obstructing them as they attempted to exit or move about the church. This last one is big. I don't know if it's going to be further along in the paperwork here, but there were children in like a daycare in the upper portion of the church, and when parents tried to go and be with their children that were in the upper portion of the church, these terrorists blocked the stairs and would not allow the parents to go to their children. They literally would not let the parents go to their children while they terrorized them. In the box. Every fucking one of them. All of these main conspirators that have been indicted should be forced legally to give up the names of every single person that was with them as co-conspirators. They should be forced. There should be no, I'm not going to tell you. No, they absolutely should be forced to tell them who did you go with, who was with you. They absolutely should be forced to give up their co-conspirators, because their co-conspirators are criminals. They are criminals and they are terrorists. Every fucking one of them needs to go in the box. Every fucking one of them. No, no exceptions. Every fucking one of them. Chanting and yelling loudly at the pastor comments or physically stalking and trying to exit him about church. Overt Act number 16. While inside the church, defendant, redacted, stood with other agitators in and around the main aisles in the church to intimidate the church members and obstruct and interfere with their freedom of movement, approach the pastor and congregants in a menacing manner, and, near the end of the operation, loudly berated the pastor with questions about Christian nationalism and Christians wanting to have their faith be the law of the land. They literally made an attack on religion. They literally made an attack upon religion. You can agree with Christianity or not. You can be Christian, you cannot be. You can be Jewish, you could be Muslim, you could be Hindu, you could be Taoist, you could be whatever. Doesn't matter. You don't attack another religion like this when they are peacefully just in a place of worship, pray quietly, unobtrusively, and harming no one. And they literally attacked them for it. Yeah. Overt Act 617, while inside the church, defendant Lundy personally participated in the disruptive takeover operation with other defendants by standing in the main aisle with the others and contributing to the physical obstruction and intimidation of the congregants, participating loudly in some of the chants, e.g., one saying that the targeted ICE agent must be out, and punching his fist in the air. Overt Act 18. While inside the church, defendant Cruz personally participated in the disruptive takeover operation with the other defendants by standing in and around the main aisle with the others and contributing to the physical obstruction and intimidation of the congregants and participating in some of the chants. Overt Act 19. Told you, this one's going to be a big one. While inside the church, defendant Kelly disrupted the service by chanting, "This ain't God's house. This is the house of the devil." Again, arbitrarily saying, "I'm better than you. I'm the one that can tell you what is Christian and what is not. I am the," again, which pope died and made her the arbiter of, or him or her, I can't remember if Kelly was a guy or a girl, I don't fucking matter, they're still a piece of shit. What religious leader died and made Kelly the arbiter of what is God's house and what is not? Fuck you, you door-riding cunt. Approached one female congregant who was with 2 young children and demanded to know in a hostile manner why she was not involved in and supportive of the takeover operation, and screamed Nazi in the congregant's face and asked child congregants, "Do you know your parents are Nazis? They're going to burn in hell." These are the people that the left and the Democrats want you to believe are so wonderful and righteous. These are the people that the left and the Democrats support. That they will go and scream into the faces of children, "Do you know your parents are Nazis and they're going to burn in hell?" Honestly, ironically enough, it is a miracle, an actual miracle, that no one was killed during this. Legitimately, it is a miracle that no one died when this happened. If you had, when they came in and did this, my guess is you probably didn't have any actual working men present, because the working men were actually probably at their jobs, unlike these unemployed terrorists that decided to terrorize women and children. I'm guessing there were not too many working men present, because if you actually had working men present in the church when this happened, I would bet you that they would have started beating the ever-living fuck out of these people. If there had been, men with blue-collar jobs, off-duty police, ex-military, what have you, number one, they would have been probably armed. Number two, even if they hadn't been, I will bet you they would have bum rushed the fuck out of these people and started pounding them. And I'm guessing they chose their target well. If I was a suspicious person, and I am, I'm guessing that they planned this terrorist attack specifically to hit a church service when they knew it would be primarily women and children. They chose the time of day. They chose the day in question. They knew that there would not be any resistance. This was tactical. These scumbag terrorists that should spend the next 20 years minimum in prison knew there wouldn't be anyone there to resist. This was planned. 100% this was planned. Now, next, Overt Act 20. Defendant Lemon told his live stream audience about congregants leaving the church and about a, quote, young man who Lemon could see was frightened, scared, and crying. And Lemon observed that the congregants' reactions were understandable because the experience was traumatic and comfortable, which he said was the purpose. Don Lemon amusingly enough, recording his crimes. Thank you for presenting that evidence for us, Lemon Dick. Actually said that this is specifically purpose to be a terrorist attack, to terrorize children. Don Lemon flat out admitted the entire purpose of this operation was to be a terrorist attack to traumatize people. In the box you go. Overt Act number 21, as the operation continued, Defendant Lemon acknowledged the nature of it by expressing surprise that the police hadn't arrived at the church and admitted knowing that the whole point of the operation is to disrupt. Yeah, the police hadn't arrived at the church because the governor and the heads of the police all said, if there's rioters, don't go there. Let the rioters take over. Yeah, he claimed that he's surprised. He expressed surprise that the police hadn't arrived, which is bullshit. He pretended, I will bet you, he pretended to be surprised, but it was not unexpected because again, the whole thing, up to this point, the chiefs of police, the head, the superintendent chiefs, whatever the rank is, had literally been pulling police away from every area that had been occupied by protesters and rioters. This was known. They knew the police were not going to get involved in any anti-ICE protests. They knew this and they counted on it. They 100% counted on it. It was baked into the tactical planning of the terrorist attack. I'm just saying. Overt Act number 622. While the takeover operation was underway, Defendant Lemon asked Armstrong, who is the person that we should talk to? Is there a pastor or something? And she pointed toward the front of the church, but noted the pastor might have run away. Overt Act number 23. With other co-conspirators standing by, defendants Lemon, Redacted, and Fort approached the pastor and largely surrounded him to his front and both sides, stood in close proximity to the pastor in an attempt to oppress and intimidate him, and physically obstructed his freedom of movement while Lemon peppered him with questions to promote the operation's message. Here's where I'm interested if they're going to talk about this. Overt Act number 24. While talking with the pastor, Defendant Lemon stood so close to the pastor that Lemon caused the pastor's right hand to graze Lemon, who then admonished the pastor, please don't push me. Overt Act 25. Although the pastor told Defendant Lemon and the others to leave the church, Defendant Lemon and the other defendants ignored the pastor's request and did not immediately leave the church. And thank God that made it into the indictment. This is specifically what I wanted into this indictment. Because this, more than anything, along with this, nails Lemon to the fucking wall. The pastor, on camera, again, dumbass Lemonhead, providing all the evidence needed against him, told Don Lemon and everyone else involved, I want you to leave. And the terrorists flat out said, no, we don't care. We're staying and we're going to continue to terrorize you. And Don Lemonhead recorded it all. And broadcast it all and provided the courts with all the evidence they need to convict him. Beautiful. Overt Act 26, after causing most of the congregants to flee, some of the other defendants and other agitators engaged in a chant proclaiming, who shut this down? We shut this down. Translation, they were celebrating that they committed a successful terror attack. That's the translation. They were cheering about the fact that they committed a successful terror attack on the church. Vote Act 23. As one congregant reported to the responding police officers, some of the agitators blocked the stairs leading to the children's childcare area, this is what I was talking about, and made it difficult and hazardous for parents to retrieve their children, causing some to take alternative routes in or around the church. They prevented parents from reaching their children. Child endangerment. Every single one of them that blocked the stairs should be charged with child endangerment. They prevented the parents from reaching their children, thus endangering the well-being of their children because they don't know how terrified their children were and at what actions the children might take out of that fear. Charge every fucking one of them with child endangerment. Every fucking one. Child endangerment, and you could you might even be able to, with the language in the law, you might even be able to do child abuse. For the ones that were still downstairs when they were screaming that your parents are Nazis and they're going to go to hell, I think you might even be able to quantify child abuse with every fucking one of them. You need to throw they need to throw the fucking book at them. Yeah, you're right. You could legitimately, what would the church be in Minnesota? Oh God, I'm thinking, oh God, I've lost the word. I've lost the word. No, it's the legal term, and I'm blanking on the legal term for like a hostage. Fuck, I can't. I've lost the word, but basically, unlawful detainment. That's where it was. You could basically charge them with unlawful detainment, not kidnapping, but unlawful detainment or false imprisonment. There you go. Yeah, false imprisonment. Throw that at the literally throw every fucking charge you can. Every single person that was involved in this terrorist attack, throw every fucking charge you can. Have them spend the next 20 plus years in prison. Every fucking one of them. Every one of them. They need to be put in a box and they need to be removed from society. Every fucking one of them. Overt Act number 27. As one congregant responded to, oh wait, I already said that. Overt Act number 28. At one point, Defendant Lemon posted himself at the main door of the church where he confronted some congregants and physically obstructed them as they tried to exit the church building to challenge them with, quote, facts, unquote, about immigration policy. This is doubly insane because number one, now Don Lemon can also be charged with unlawful detainment. Because that's what he did. He unlawfully detained them when they tried to exit the church, wouldn't let them leave. That's unlawful detainment. Boom, jail, goodbye. And then trying to challenge them with facts about immigration policy. We saw the video a while ago. Don Lemon doesn't know fucking shit. Don Lemon is a fucking moron. The last time he tried to challenge someone do his like bullshit man on the street thing and tried to actually like gotcha someone about immigration law, he got gotcha'd by the absolute stranger instead. He got completely bodied by an absolute stranger with facts. So Don Lemon doesn't know shit. Thank you, Baconator, and thank you, Psycho Ducky, for the tier 3. Thank you very much. Overt Act number 29. As a minivan full of children was preparing to depart from the church, Defendant Kelly walked in front of the minivan and angrily yelled at the occupants.
Right away.
No, guys, come on.
No trial, no nothing.
Seriously.
Right, right away.
As a minivan full of children was preparing to depart from the church, Defendant Kelly walked in front of the minivan and angrily yelled at the occupants, and defendants Armstrong and Ford stood in front of the minivan while Ford interviewed Armstrong. Again, unlawful detainment. They're lucky that the person behind the wheel didn't just fire it up and step on the gas, because at that point, the driver of the minivan would have been perfectly within their rights to just hit the gas and run them over. There was a reasonable fear for their life. It would have been they would have been legally defending themselves by doing that, especially if especially if it was a minivan full of children. They are lucky that they didn't get run over. All right, now we're into count 2. That was count number 1, chat. All of that was count 1. Now we into count 2. Count 2. 18 U.S.C. 248A, 2B, and 2A, all defendants injure, intimidate, and interfere with exercise of right of religious freedom at a place of worship. The allegations set forth in paragraphs 1 through 8 of this indictment are re-alleged and incorporated herein by reference. on or about January 18th, 2026, in the state district of Minnesota. Defendants, we all know the assholes, each aiding and abetting one another and together with other persons known and unknown to the grand jury by use of force, threat of force, and physical obstruction, intentionally injured, intimidated, and interfered with, and attempted to injure, intimidate, and interfere with multiple persons, including the church's congregants, clergy, and staff, who were then lawfully exercising and seeking to exercise the First Amendment right of religious freedom at a place of religious worship, which conduct resulted in bodily injury to one of the congregants. Ooh. I don't think I knew that one of the congregants actually got injured. That's battery. Ooh, now we're into battery. Oh, here we fucking go. Here we go. All in violation of Title 18 United States Code 248A2B and 2A, a true bill, and then, of course, we have the sign-offs. So that is the indictment. Based on this last part, we're going to see more. We are absolutely going to be seeing more counts. This was just the appetizer, chat. I would not be at all surprised if they start piling on more charges, and they need to. They absolutely need to pile on more charges. They need to charge them with domestic terrorism. They need to charge them with battery. They need to charge them with child abuse. They need to charge them with child endangerment. They need to charge them with unlawful detainment. Fucking everything. Throw everything at them. No plea deals. Absolutely no plea agreements. You send them to court. Charge them with everything you got. Yeah, you know what? Given what that one person said, yeah, hate crime would fit because they said you're not Christians. This is not God's house. This is the house of the devil. Yeah, hate crime too. Absolutely charge them with hate crime. Just like everything. What they did is evil. Flat out, what these people did was evil. Because this was not simply about them, protesting or attacking ICE. That in and of itself would have been bad enough. But the fact that they did this to women and children, and the fact that they are literally traumatized children, these children may very likely now potentially speaking, not guaranteed, but potentially speaking, these children may spend the rest of their life in the grips of PTSD. This is how people get PTSD. They get abjectly traumatized by terrorists like this at a very young age, and that will stay with them for the rest of their lives. The fact that these children thought that their parents were about to die, you just traumatized them for the rest of their life. Their parents are going to have to spend how much time and how much money to try and get them mental health counseling for God knows how many years. And yes, I guarantee you that the stupid cunt that pretends to be a lawyer, she's going to get disbarred. Absolutely, she's going to get disbarred. I'm guessing the paperwork is already being filed for her disbarment. I have no doubt she's going to get disbarred. She's probably and she's going to be, I don't know what the term is for, she claims to be a pastor. So whatever, I'm legit surprised that the church has not come out and basically said she is no pastor for our churches and basically distanced themselves from. I don't know what the term is when a church basically says you are no longer allowed to be a pastor in our church. Don't know, but defrocked or what have you. But yeah, she should be disbarred. She should not be allowed in any church again. She should be whatever defrocked is. Excommunicate. Yeah, sure, excommunicate. Yeah. Yeah, the church needs to come out and excommunicate her. Say, no, you're not a Christian. You're out. You are not Christian. You have nothing to do with Christianity. You are not welcome in God's house. Boot her the fuck out, and then she can go spend the next 20 plus years in prison. And then while she's in prison, she and everyone involved in this can get sued for everything that they have by every person in that church. Do class action lawsuits between for every single person that was involved in this attack, class action lawsuits, leave them for everything. Leave them with nothing. Leave them with nothing so they have to live in a shitty one-bedroom walk-up and have to work Walmart for the rest of their life because they have to pay off their victims. I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that. I'm fine with taking everything from them so they have to live in a crappy little one-bedroom apartment and has to go work as a greeter at Walmart for the rest of their lives because they've got to pay off all of their victims. I'm totally good with that. I'd be perfectly happy with that after they get out of prison. This is just an absolute shit show. And the crazy thing is you have so many you're of course seeing all of these, left-leaning journalists coming out of the fucking woodwork saying, "Oh, this is horrible. This is a fascist state. If Trump can do this to this journalist, you're obstructing the freedom of the press. This is so horrible." While blatantly ignoring the fact that Don Lemon was engaged in the terrorist activity. He participated. He ceased to be a journalist when he was engaged in the planning, when he went in with them and then committed a crime against the pastor of intimidation and unlawful restraint, effectively speaking, and criminal trespass. He literally when he committed crimes, he stopped being a journalist. This is like, he wanted to try and pretend like he was one of those embedded journalists in like Ukraine or Syria, like one of those war journalists where they're embedded with the unit and they feel like they're protected because they have press on their bulletproof vests. He wanted to try and pretend that's what he was doing when all he was doing was conducting criminal activity. Don Lemon conducted criminal activity, but doesn't want to be held accountable for it and wants to hold the First Amendment and his press microphone up as a shield to basically say, no, you can't touch me. I'm part of the press. No, I can do whatever I want. Since it's a state, you can't touch me. And he's finding out very quickly, no, you don't. You don't get to do whatever the fuck you want, Don Lemon Dick. You get to go spend time in the box is what you get to do.